What's going on YouTube? OCD for EDC here, and what I got for your face balls today is this sweet little guy right here. This here is the TwoSun TS232 pointed. They offer this in two different blade shapes. This one here is the clip point, and they refer to this as the pointed model. And then they also have one that they call a round, and it essentially has kind of a rounded, if you could imagine where this clip point starts right here, it just kind of comes out and is kind of a rounded, almost looks like a some type of a spreader or like a spatula type blade. It's kind of interesting, but I liked the look of the clip point and certainly love the look of the handle. So we're going to get into this, but first, let's start out with a few size comparisons. So here it is up against the Spyderco Para 3, and here it is up against the Spyderco Manix 2. So you can see there, a little shorter than the Manix, but a good bit longer than the Para 3. And we'll throw one more out there. I got another orange one sitting here. This is the Ritter Hogue RSK. So, give you a good idea of the size of this knife. Get this stuff out of the way here. All right, so what we're looking at. Overall length on this guy is 7.83 inches. You've got a 4.35 inch handle and a blade that measures 3.48. So just barely under 3.5 inches. You got a handle thickness of 490 thousandths, so it's just under a half of an inch. However, this area up here where you have these two pivot collars, this is a little over. It's like 520 thousandths in this area. You can see full titanium construction, really nice back spacer. It's got it does sit proud of the scales a bit, and it's rounded. All the edges of the scales are rounded really nicely. I got a little ahead of myself. I hadn't finished my dimensions yet. Blade stock thickness on this is 144 thousandths, and it is rocking 14C28N blade steel. Very, very thin behind the edge. This thing measures consistently 12 thousandths behind the edge all the way across. Does get ever so slightly thicker right at the very tip. It's about 14 thousandths. But for about 95% of the blade or so, it's 12 thousandths behind the edge, which is just fantastic. Let's get a scale out here. We'll get a weight on this guy. So we're looking at, basically a 3.5 inch blade, or 3.48 inches. And there you go, 3.29. So just barely over 3.25 ounces. So really, really nice EDC size and weight. It's got this traditional Barlow style pattern, which I really like. I really love the look of this thing. And the jig titanium is gorgeous. Not only is it gorgeous, but it's extremely functional. You can see on the edges of this, there is no jimping along the spine or the underneath side, so it's very, very comfortable in hand. You do have a few little, I guess you could call those jimps. They're really there just more for aesthetic value as far as I'm concerned. But in the hand, because you have this large area here and then where your fingers hit, grip on this knife is really spectacular. Better than I expected. It's insanely comfortable in hand. You get a little bit of a rise here from the way the blade is designed, so it makes for a really nice kind of thumb ramp, although albeit it's not very aggressive on the ramp. But this Barlow pattern's been around forever, and it just it's just a great design that's been that's one of the reasons why it's been around forever. It's just a fantastic design, and it stood the test of time. And this one here, just really neutral grip. I think this is going to work great for everyone. doesn't matter your hand size. My wife and my son both really like this knife. So yeah, I think it's going to fit a lot of people's needs. And man, it's just a great little EDC knife. It really is. That clip point blade is beautiful. You got a really nice satin finish on there. And the 14C TwoSun does such a great job with 14C28N. I mean, it outperforms, well, just about every other production. Well, hell, it outperforms most M390. So, it's definitely a good steel for sure. And man, the jig titanium, it's just beautiful. It really, really is. And you can see that there's varying heights, so it's a little smoother up here where the jigs are smaller, and then you can see through this area here where they start to peak out a little more, and then they get longer and flatten out. So you got this really interesting texture going on, but man, does it work well. One of the things that I really like about what they did here was these pivot collars. You can see it says TwoSun on this side, and on the lock bar side, it says night morning design. And because of that, the only mark on the blade is the steel. So 14C28N right there, and you can see the show side is sterile. So generally, you would have a TwoSun logo on the blade, but I really like the way they did it around the pivot. This little detail right here certainly didn't have to be there. It's just there for aesthetic value, but I think it did. I just think it's beautiful. I think they did a fantastic job all the way around on this knife. Night morning design, you killed it, man. This thing is beautiful. The only, from an aesthetic standpoint, I wish that the lock bar relief cut would have been internal. But I'm really nitpicking. Pocket clip on this thing's great. It's got really good retention. Goes in and out of the pocket extremely easy. Even though you have this jigged pattern there, this thing slides in and out perfect. You do have a few jumps up here on the flipper tab. Flipper tab it's not massive, but it does stick out there a little ways. But man, the action on this thing is super snappy, and it's riding on ceramic ball bearings, ceramic detent. I'm pretty sure it's got a detent ramp as well. But let's go ahead and tear into this. So, for those of you that are familiar with TwoSuns, you know where you can get this knife. To my knowledge, right at the moment, the only place that you're picking this knife up is on eBay or on their. They have like a AliExpress store. I think it's called TwoSun Cutlery. So you can see there is a little bit of weight relieving. You've got a hardened steel insert with the ceramic detent ball. Just simple, effective construction. And then, of course, you can remove this pivot collar here. Let's do that real quick just to see. All right. So that pivot collar on the lock bar side actually acts as an over travel stop. And there you go. You can see the little milled out area where the lock bar goes into. So yeah, kind of interesting. It's just in my opinion, it's just a cool little design touch that really set this knife apart, and I really like it. I think it looks cool. This thing's definitely going to be awesome to do some ano work on, and so this one's definitely going to be getting some ano work. There you go. There's your back spacer. Does not have a lanyard hole on this knife. And there's your ceramic bearing. You can see a little more extensive weight relieving. And then, of course, there's your screw for the little insert or pivot collar. Go ahead and throw this guy back together. I'm just going to wipe that off. So there is a detent ramp right there. Perfect. Get this thing put together quick. And I have one other thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about and show you real quick. But let me get this screwed back together. So in a few of my videos recently, you guys have seen some knives that I'm doing some ano work on. And so I'm just going to give some anodizing updates and show you what I've got going on here in just a moment. Get this put back together. This TwoSun 232, it's a gorgeous knife. If you guys like the look of this thing, this is definitely a 2 thumbs up recommended purchase for sure. I think they're going for, from what I've seen, anywhere from, you know, between 100 and 150 bucks. You know, you might be able to get a little less than that, but man, is it a sweet knife. It really, really is. It's quickly becoming a favorite just because it's so small in the pocket. Carries so nicely. Just give you a couple real quick dimensions that I didn't. So, you know, you're looking at just over 3/4 of an inch up on the top, and then down on the fat end of this Barlow design, just barely over an inch. So, you know, the size on this is just really great. You know, just over 4 inches long. You're looking at just barely over an inch here, 3/4 of an inch up here, and a 1/2 inch thick. I mean, it carries so good, and just the design is timeless, you know, and I love it with that clip point blade. And like I said, the jig titanium is just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, they did such a good job. And you know, you don't see any. I looked this thing over really, really well. You can see the milled pocket clip as well, and the pocket clip is contoured, but you don't see any, you know, bad tooling lines. There's no you know, chatter marks anywhere. I mean, it's just stellar work. You can see their blades perfectly centered. And of course, you know, I mean, with TwoSun, the quality is stellar. So awesome knife, really cool. I've been carrying it for a few days. Really, really digging this knife. I love the fact they did the sterile blade. I can't recommend this thing enough. TwoSun TS232 pointed. It's a badass for sure. So, all right, we're just going to let that guy set for a minute. So, on to some anodizing updates. So you guys know that I got a Spyderco K2 from one of my viewers, and I'm doing some anodizing work on it. And so the K2, this is one of the scales, obviously lock-side scale. You can see where the over travel stop is. But you can see here the aggressive stone wash that is on the scales there. Now, I've started flattening this one out, and you can see, I don't know how well that's showing up, but you can see there's a big dark area right here, and then another big dark area, all this area back here, and then a little more up here. So, you know, in order to polish this up and do the type of ano we're doing here, this just takes a lot of time. It's a lot of hand work. It's a lot of sanding. So I've already started sanding on this one. I've already done the vast majority of the sanding. So this is the show side scale, and there you go. So I still need to polish this out, but it is now flat, and it is perfectly flat. This is a 2500 grit sandpaper finish. So there you go. People ask me all the time, how do you do this ano finish? A lot of sandpaper and elbow grease. So there you go, 3M, 2500 grit. That's K2 scale material right there. So that's the deal. Prep work and polishing is the most important part about doing flame ano. So if you're going to do, you know, the psychedelic style finish, I put a video out a while back on how to do it, but I did not show all the prep work. The prep work's the most important part, and it just takes a lot of hard work. That's all there is to it. You just have to get after it. I get asked all the time about the entropic finish, or Olamic calls it the entropic finish. Actually, let me grab a knife here real quick. So the ano finish that people are referring to that they really like, or you know, some people do, it's not a difficult finish to achieve. But this type of finish right here, you know, it's certainly a process to get there. But the most important part about it is polishing the titanium. And so I've had tons of people ask me about it and say, oh, how do I do that? How do I do that? Well, if you don't polish it, and when I say polish, this is not polished yet. This is a 2500 grit finish, and I just got it flat and perfectly, you know, all the other scratch marks. And so then we'll get into polishing. And when I'm done, this will look like a mirror. I mean, very literally, it will be a mirror polish, just like this was. And you can kind of tell after the ano's done that all this was polished. Now, this one was a little more difficult because everything's rounded. You can see it's heavily contoured. So with this, you at least have a little bit of flat, or not a little bit, a lot of bit of flat. But man, I'll tell you, it was a lot of work just to get to this point right here. So yeah, they had a real heavy stone wash. And although it feels smooth, you figure out real quick how rough that surface really is when you start hitting it with super fine sandpaper. So anyway, for those people that have done this before, they know what I'm talking about. And for those that haven't, you know, I fully encourage anyone. That's why I put the video out there, was to give people a starting point where they could start doing that type of ano. And, you know, I know some people got upset about it and said I was revealing trade secrets and this and that, whatever. The reality is, any guy that is willing to try that on his own, what isn't the type of guy that pays to have work done. He's just going to do his own mods. And if he can't figure out how to do this, he's just not going to do it. But, you know, like, just like with this gentleman that owns this K2, you know, if this is the only knife that he wants done in a finish like this, then it doesn't really make sense for him to go out and buy all the stuff that's required and whatnot. You know, it's just way simpler and easier to pay someone to do it, which is what most people are going to do anyway. Just to give you an idea of what it takes to do this kind of stuff, so far, I've used the 2500 grit sandpaper. I've used 2000 grit sandpaper. I've used 1500. I also have 1000 around here somewhere. And then I'm going to scoot this over for a minute, and I'm going to pull this, and it all starts on this 2-inch thick slab of granite, which I have 220 grit sandpaper taped down onto this 2-inch block of granite. So this is a machined, tooled, you know, surface ground piece of granite. So it is perfectly flat. It's certified. It's a granite plate that machine shops use to set their tooling with and whatnot. So it's a perfect flat surface. And then, you know, taking a scale like this, setting it down on here, and literally you start sanding 220 grit and then go down from there. You can see it's dirty. So yeah, that's how I do it. I get a lot of questions about it all the time. You know, having a big sanding block makes a lot of difference, it helps a lot. But you don't have to have that. That's not a mandatory. It just helps out. So anyway, I thought I would give a little update on the anodizing. I also have got some standard color anodizing that I'm actually going to be getting finished up later today. I got multiple knives in process. I was waiting on one to show up. Yeah, just I have a whole bunch of stuff going on, and so you'll probably start seeing some anodizing videos come out here real quick. But yeah, so I definitely wanted to get it out there about the TwoSun TS232 because this is just such a gorgeous knife. Really, really awesome. This thing's super cool. Like I said, really digging the clip point blade, and the jig tie is just, yeah, it's doing it for me. It's hitting all the buttons. So super cool, and really, really digging that knife. And I'm excited about the K2 as well. I also have the Aloni Knives Goat. You guys are going to see that really quick. I'm doing a whole bunch of work on that thing. So that's going to be coming up real soon as well. And then also the I got the Aloni knife, or well, from Derek Costa, the Shark. And then the other day I posted a video on how to strop. If you guys have not yet picked up a strop, I was kind of surprised how many people left comments saying that they don't have a strop. I've been using the crap out of this one. So it's a really, really nice strop from sharpeningsupplies.com. Go check out their website. They have tons and tons of strops. This one here, this happens to be the paddle strop 123, which means it's 12 inches long, 3 inches wide. Personally, the bigger they are, the better they are to use, in my opinion. But they do make this exact same strop. It's a little bit cheaper, and I think it's, I can't remember if it's 8 or 10 inches long and 2 inches wide. So yeah, just a different dimension, a little smaller. This is the large one. And yeah, so definitely go check out sharpeningsupplies.com. They got everything you could ask for, and a bunch of stuff I had never seen or heard of for maintaining your edges. It's a really cool place, super good guys, and they were kind enough to help me out with the TSA game. And so I want to do everything I can to help support them, especially during the times that we're living in right at the moment. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely some cool stuff coming out of TwoSun. I actually have multiple brand new TwoSuns that I will be showing very, very soon. I got my hand all dirty from the sandpaper, but yeah, so stay tuned. Several new TwoSun videos coming, and yeah, I got a bunch of cool new TwoSun knives. This one here just happened to yeah, be first up because it's beautiful. All right, guys, I appreciate all your guys' support. Like, subscribe, do all the things. Stay safe, be healthy, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks.